All righty. Hello, everyone. As you all are coming in, we're going to get started momentarily. We're very happy to have you here with us today. We are getting ready to go live on Facebook and letting folks come into the meeting. As you all are coming into the meeting, please utilize the chat function to put any additional questions that you all may have. We are very happy to have you all here with us today. All right. And we are live on Facebook, everybody. Super happy to be a part of this Friday evening with some incredible people. My name is Jenny Castillo, and I am the Regional Engagement Director for the Southern Economic Advancement Project, SEEP for short. We are happy to welcome you to our welcome our webinar participants and all of our friends on Facebook. For the first time ever, I can gladly say that we have made a virtual event standing room only. With over 1,000 registrants, we know that this important discussion on the Justice for Black Farmers Act in collaboration with the Black Belt Justice Center will be helpful and inspiring. We will hear from our guest speakers and answer some of the questions submitted through the registration link. We will then hear personal accounts from Southern women farmers, Carolyn Jones, Angela Provost, and Tracy Lloyd. Thank you to our esteemed guests, Senator Cory Booker, Representative David Scott, and Stacey Abrams, Executive Director of SEEP. Stacey is a nonprofit CEO, serial entrepreneur, political leader, and New York Times bestselling author. After serving for 11 years in the Georgia House of Representatives, 7 as minority leader, in 2018, Leader Abrams became the Democratic nominee for governor of Georgia. She then founded and chairs Fair Fight Action, a 501c4 organization dedicated to ensuring voter engagement and participation, as well as elections reform to promote fairness in our elections. She also founded Fair Count, a 501c3, with a focus on the 2020 census and long-term civic engagement, while also leading SEEP to make lasting impact on policy agenda setting in the South. Please welcome Stacey Abrams.
Jenny, thank you so much for getting us started today. And thank you to my dear friend, Congressman David Scott, who in the upcoming session of Congress will become chair of the House Agriculture Committee, which is an extraordinary coup in terms of being able to have someone from the South leading conversations about how we address the challenges facing agriculture at large, hunger issues, food security, and of course, the issues facing Black farmers. As Jenny pointed out, I've been a little busy since 2018. When I ran for governor, my mission was to serve the people and to meet them where they are, to identify challenges that were facing individuals, communities, and industries. I just traveled across the entire state of Georgia, including spending some time in Burke County, in Terrell County, Screven County, really doing my best to go to every single county to understand what was at stake. And one conversation I heard again and again and again was that small organizations were not being amplified at the statewide level, and that Southern states weren't being heard at the national level. I understood that there were challenges that were identical no matter which region of Georgia you were in. And because I'm originally from Mississippi, I understood that some of those conversations were happening across the South. When I did not win in 2018, I had a little bit of time off, but I really wanted to focus on why I ran in the first place. What were the issues that galvanized me, and why did I get into politics in the first place? For me, politics is always a tool for good policy. Policy should never be a tool for people's politics. And so without the platform of a political office, that did not exempt me of the obligation to focus on what was needed for our communities. And so as Jenny pointed out, I thought about the ecosystem of how we achieve justice and progress. I began with creating Fair Fight Action, which is a C4, and its companion organization, Fair Fight PAC, to make certain that we had access to a real and robust democracy, no matter where we lived and no matter who we were. I then created Fair Count to focus on the 2020 census, because so often we treat the census as a once a decade intrusion. And I believe that we can use the census as a 10-year power building exercise, where every year we use it to think about how we access the political power that comes along with the distribution of seats in our state and federal and local elections, but how we also make certain we get access to the resources that we are entitled to as part of this nation. But it's not enough to have the ability to vote and have the ability to elect people who represent you and see you and come from your communities if you don't have good policies to promote. And so I created the Southern Economic Advancement Project. SEAP is designed to focus on the 12 state region that we consider the South. We exist as a bridge builder because we want to make certain that Southerners are part of important national conversations. And there is one conversation that I've been having since I became a member of the General Assembly, and that is how we serve Black farmers, especially Black farmers in the South. We have dedicated time to hosting different Black farmers forums, not only because it's crucial to the development of the South, but because Black farmers are part of the spine of agriculture that serves the entire United States. We've hosted these forums in September 2019, January 2020, September 2020. And we each time try to make advances, try to answer questions, and try to connect organizations, because ultimately that's what SEAP exists to do. We're not here to be a new organization stirring up new challenges. Our goal is to fill in the gaps, because we know there are groups that have been doing this work on the ground for decades. We know that there are those who've been seeking support for years. Where we see ourselves fitting in is providing that technical assistance, providing that forum, the ability to convene on a platform, but also stoking conversation and translating that into policy. I like to describe SEAP most simply as we are a translator we translate progressive into Southern. Today, we want to highlight what is happening for Black farmers on a federal level. And we want to explore the process for getting federal bills to pass. For so many of you, you've been waiting for decades for federal action on what's been happening to your properties, what's been happening to your livelihoods, what's happening in your lives. And we want to make certain that the process for federal bills to pass is very clear. We want to specifically talk about the bill being promoted by and supported and sponsored by Cory Booker. Senator Booker has introduced the Justice for Black Farmers Act, and we're so excited that he's here today to talk about that act. We want to discuss why we should be so excited that Congressman Scott is the chair of the House Agriculture Committee. What is his vision for the committee, and how can we be supportive of that vision so that we can help empower him to do the best job possible? We also all want to understand what to expect in 2021. As much as we have to have the conversation about Black farmers, we have to understand its intersection with COVID relief and with major bills that will be moving through the Congress. And we want to understand how these things intersect. And most importantly, we want to talk about how you all can be involved, how young urban farmers get motivated to get involved in civic engagement, how longstanding farmers can finally get answers to questions they've been asking for too long. Again, I want to thank Congressman Scott for his service and for his participation. He has been a true and thoughtful ally to me since I joined the legislature, and I'm so gratified that he agreed to join today's conversation. We will hear from Congressman Scott shortly, but first we're going to hear from my dear friend, Senator Cory Booker. I met Senator Booker when he was Cory and I was Stacey, and we were students at Yale Law School. I was a first-year law student, and Cory was already a legend. He was a third-year law student who had already made waves because of his support and advocacy for his hometown, for the work he was doing in New Jersey. He was a man who was known for getting out there and doing the hard work of service, even as he was completing one of the toughest degrees in the country, getting his law degree from Yale. but it never stopped him from taking time to listen to people, asking questions, and being certain to listen to the answers. I've followed his career with incredible pride, knowing that this is a man who always leads with his heart. He leads with service on his mind, and he refuses to ever be stopped by those who think that he's doing too much, because he understands that it is never too much when you are standing in service of others. Cory once called me, he said that he refers to me as his sister. I have two brothers of my own, but I know that Cory Booker is a brother of the heart, a man who will do everything in his power to see justice done. And he is here to talk about how he's working to get justice for Black farmers. Please help me welcome Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you so much, Leader Abrams. It looks like because you work so hard to do everything right on a Zoom, that Zoom is not working for Senator Booker at this moment. So we are trying to get him on. And it looks like it may be working, but let's try to give him a few more seconds to get his audio and video up. In the meantime, I do want to thank Leader Abrams, not only for her leadership, but her vision that she has done for the state of Georgia and for the South. And being a part of SEEP has shown such an incredible effort of working across so many different boundaries and borders and conversations. And I'm so happy to be a part of this team because we are trying to build something even bigger. And one of those big things is a coalition between not only Black farmers and policymakers, but also between organizations that are doing this work across the South. So thank you for your constant vision and your leadership. And I really, truly hope that Zoom will act right in front of company, y'all, because I worked really hard on this.
Well, Jenny, why don't we do this? While we wait for it to work, if Congressman Scott is ready, we would love to, oh, I think Cory's back. Let's give him one more second. But I will tell you this about Congressman Scott. Congressman Scott doesn't have to get ready because he stays ready. And so why don't we go ahead and begin with Congressman David Scott. Congressman Scott is the congressman from the 13th Congressional District. He is a man of the people. When I first met Congressman Scott, I needed to talk to him about an issue dealing with entrepreneurs, asking how we could invest, especially in the wake of the Great Recession, how we could help small businesses recover, how we could certify and guarantee that resources weren't just going to the big businesses and the well-known, but those dollars were reaching minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and they were going across the state of Georgia. It was Congressman Scott who not only listened to me, but wrote a letter and said, let me see how we can help push these ideas forward. And it wasn't just about writing something on paper. He followed up, he engaged, and because of his work, thousands of Georgians had access to resources that otherwise likely would not have reached them. We were able to work together to ensure that jobs were created, that jobs were retained, and that organizations, that small businesses continued to grow even as we faced economic challenges. David Scott is a man who believes in the power of the work that he does, and it is my honor to introduce my dear friend and the new chair of the Agriculture Committee, Congressman David Scott.
Man, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Stacey. And what can be said about Stacey that hasn't been said? But I will tell you this, the passion that she has is so much needed now. The leadership that she has brought and the impact that she is having on the politics of this nation right now is immeasurable. And I just want to say thank you, Stacey. I look, you're proud of me. I'm proud of you. You are already legendary, but it's not just in the name. You're legendary in your work. For you have pioneered so vividly. And you know, I'm a firm believer that God brings the right people along at the right time to do the right thing. And such a woman is Stacey Abrams. God bless you, leader. Thank you so much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely thrilled. First of all, to be on here with Stacey and with my good friend and colleague in Congress, Senator Booker. What I am so delighted and happy to be here to be a part of that. Thank you, Stacey, for inviting me. Thank you for all those nice words you had to say about me. I hope somebody's recording them. You got them down? All right. Well, my man here has got them down. Look, I know I have 10 minutes here, and I want to deal with this issue because it is so important. And thank you for recognizing, Stacey, the historic nature. And it's very important that we understand the historic nature of my election to be the first African American to chair the powerful and extraordinarily important committee on agriculture, but also that I also am the first African American member of Congress from Georgia to share any committee up here. That makes my position all the more impactful. And I know what it means. We've got work to do. God didn't make this happen for any reason except to continue to build and do his work. And there is no more at this time important industry that we have is agriculture. It's the food we eat, the water we drink. It is our shelter, our renewable fuels, our clothing. We can do without a lot of things, but we cannot do without food and water and clothing and our shelter. And so we understand that. But here's something else we must understand that, yeah, I'm here, but I am standing on the shoulders of so many that have gone before me. I was born on a farm over in rural inner South Carolina on my grandparents' farm. I grew up there. In my young years, I picked the cotton, cropped the tobacco, plowed the fields, fed the hogs, shucked the corn, did it all. But it taught me the dignity of hard work and all of that and the struggles of our people. This was during the days of segregation. And so it is those shoulders that I stand on now as I become the chairman of this agriculture committee. And I know foremost why the Lord put me here. As chairman, I can assure you that our agriculture committee will provide leadership in eliminating racial injustice and discrimination in our agriculture industry. Foremost, that is my number one priority. And bring justice to our Black farmers and advance opportunities for all of us, regardless of race, creed, or color. And let me tell you, where there are some areas that we need to start, and it's right there or here in our United States Department of Agriculture. For too long, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has denied Black farmers equal access to its agriculture programs. We know that. I must know that. And the failure of USDA's Civil Rights Office to adequately address complaints within the department has already compounded this shame. So now, as we look to the future, it is important for us to know that I have made racial inclusion central throughout my entire 18 years of work on the Agriculture Committee. I have already secured $80 million for scholarships for our 1890 19 African American land grant colleges and universities, like Florida A&M, like Tuskegee, Alabama A&M, all of those schools there. You all remember what Plessy Burgess Ferguson in the 1860s after the Civil War? In every Southern Confederate state, they put a university, a college, but they didn't do it for our people coming out of slavery. But then in 1890, they passed the separate but equal, so that in every state where they put a white school, college, they had to put a black one. Those schools provided the anchor for the survival of our African American people into the middle class. So it gave me a great need, and I expressed that to Congress. Put $80 million in here so that we can keep these schools going and we can prepare young people for the burgeoning careers in our great agriculture industry and financial system. And that, along with another program that we had, worked well. It's called the Section 2501 Outreach Program, where community-based organizations could come together and work to help our Black farmers do and deal with land ownership, other issues. Now we have some programs out there working, but they're not working sufficiently enough. And we've got work to do. And so I want you to know that I will be having a hearing of my full agriculture committee on the status of our Black farmers. That has never been done. In order for us to really find out how our Black farmers are doing, let's bring them in to Congress to testify before my committee to learn how we can help them more and bring with them the United States Department of Agriculture and say, why? Why is it that you ain't doing what you should do at the civil rights? I think the lady was Sherwood from way back. You all may remember her. But there was all kinds of problems we've had. We need to clear them up. There's a new sheriff in town, and the name of that sheriff is David Scott. And if you know anything about me and my history, you know I am very serious. We are going to be at the point of the spear for our Black farmers. We need to bring in the credit people, the land ownership experts. We need to make sure that we are applying money to help our Black farmers. We need to do that. They paid the price, for they stand on the shoulders as we all do, of those Black farmers of long ago, but not too long ago, who had to do the farming, who had to do the hard work for no money at all. Slaves, that's whose shoulders we stand on when we talk about agriculture. I understand that. I have no other choice but to make our Black farmers as successful as we possibly can. I think as I leave you here, I think that the best way I can bring it home is to share with you a story of a friend of mine. She was a woman. Her name was Isabella. But in New York City one day, Isabella had a vision from God, and God changed her name to Sojourner Truth. And she would go all over this country talking about the freedom of her precious Black people. And everywhere she would go, people would ask her about her funny name. And she would say, well, about my name now, you see, the Lord gave me Sojourner so that I could travel the world showing the people their sins, but being a sign unto them. But then I told the Lord I needed another name because everybody had two names, and the Lord named me Truth so that I could tell the truth to people. And that's what we must be, sojourners of truth for Black farmers. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Scott. That was fantastic. And I saw a few questions in the chat. I just want to remind folks that Congressman Scott becomes Chairman Scott in the next legislative session that starts in January of 2021. So those of you looking for the hearing that he's talking about, let him get sworn in to the job first, and then he will let you know when the hearing will be held. It is now my privilege to once again describe my friend. I won't go through the panegyrics that he wasn't here to hear, but Senator Booker, I told them about our time together at Yale, about how kind and wonderful you have always proven to be, about the support you've traditionally and soulfully given to those who need you. And it is of no surprise to me that you are here to get justice for Black farmers. And so it is my honor to introduce and to turn over the conversation to U.S. Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you, Stacey, for so much, for your friendship, for your leadership, and for your grace that you extended me tonight. I want to thank the Southern Economic Advancement Project and the Black Belt Justice Center really for organizing what I think is one of the more vital events of a very difficult year. I want to in particular thank Tracy, Lloyd, McCurty, and Jeannie Castillo for their work and leadership as well. This is a great gathering, and I know there are hundreds and hundreds of folks who come together in this virtual gathering, creating community that is really in unity for a larger purpose. Stacey, you have been someone in my life that I have so much respect for, and I'm glad and grateful for your leadership in this space. And we just heard from David Scott. Heck, I was ready to get out and on March. I was ready to get out and chop down some trees, and I'm ready to join the Sojourn for Truth. And I called him up when he got this really historic position as the first African American ever to be leading the Agricultural Committee in the House of Representatives. And to his humility, he had his staff all around him and had me talk to them because he said he gave them the credit. But truly, it's a remarkable accomplishment. And I'm really excited about the work that we can do together. Now, we know this year has been a year where a lot of people have had to confront the serious injustices in our country. And something that has been laid bare time and time again is racial injustice. And a lot of folks may not have this as part of their daily lives and their lived experiences. and their realities. But it's a time that I think a lot of people have had their circles of empathy grow and begin to understand that persistent racism and systemic racism is something that burdens us all in this country and that undermines our potential and something we have to deal with. The coronavirus in particular has exposed and exacerbated these injustices and these disparities, from healthcare disparities and disparities in healthcare access to the wealth gap that is actually growing now in our country. And in the wake of the killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, what a lot of the country has been waking up to is that we have a serious issue, that this issue of racial injustice and the killing of unarmed Black men is something that is shameful and that we must do something about. And so this is a time of expanded moral imagination, of more people acknowledging racial injustice. But I want to say that that's not enough. What we really need right now is action and change. It's not enough to recognize a problem. We have to do something about it. And so what I'd like to do in very brief remarks is convey really two things. Number one, that we have a serious and well-documented history of racial discrimination by the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, against Black farmers. And two, that we need to, in fact, we have a plan to do something about it significantly. We know the history. In 1920, there were nearly 1 million Black farmers in the United States of America. Today, there are less than 50,000 Black farmers left in the United States of America. And since 1920, it's estimated that Black farmers, Black families, lost nearly 20 million acres of farmland and all the wealth and income that goes along with that. But this did not happen by accident, and it was not a choice on the part of those farmers. The loss of millions of acres of farmland worth hundreds of billions of dollars was primarily caused by systemic racism and discrimination within the USDA against Black farmers, with the majority of the land loss happening since 1950. It is past time that we acknowledge that injustice, and it's past knowledge that we get working on making a change within the USDA and having the USDA address the land loss suffered by Black farmers. That's why I've been focusing for many months now on working with Black farmers and advocates to draft a comprehensive piece of legislation to address the history of discrimination. And I'm proud last month to introduce the Justice for Black Farmers Act along with Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. There are too many provisions in this comprehensive bill designed from the grassroots up to really talk about it all. But I want to give you a quick overview of this piece of legislation. The bill has four main pillars. The first pillar of the bill is putting reforms in place within the USDA to protect farmers and ranchers from discrimination moving forward. Specifically, the bill would create an independent civil rights oversight board whose responsibilities will include deciding appeals of any civil rights complaints filed against the USDA. The bill also puts direct reforms in place within the USDA Office of Civil Rights, including placing a moratorium on USDA foreclosures against any farmer who has a civil rights complaint pending with the USDA. The bill will also create an equity commission to recommend additional reforms that may be needed, including reforms to the USDA county committees, which we know have historically been a source of significant discrimination. The second pillar of the bill is putting protections in place so that the remaining Black farmers that are left do not lose their land. To protect Black farmers, the bill creates a new federally chartered bank to provide Black farmers with access to operating loans and financing on favorable terms. The bill would also forgive debt for any Black farmer who filed a claim in the first Pigford lawsuit. We have received a lot of feedback from Black farmers that along with this debt forgiveness, the legislation needs to address both federal and state tax liability, and also needs to provide for refunds of offsets where USDA has seized tax refunds and Social Security and other payments to pay off debt that would have been canceled long ago. And we will be making changes to the bill before we reintroduce it in the next year to make sure that this is addressed. The bill also provides significant funding to assist Black farmers with succession planning and address heirs property issues, which also needs to be addressed by many state legislatures around the country. The third pillar of the bill is restoring the land base that has been lost by Black farmers due to discrimination and creating a new generation of Black farmers. To do this, the bill creates a new line agency within the USDA called the Equitable Land Access Service to administer a grant program to provide land grants of up to 160 acres of farmland to existing Black farmers and new Black farmers. The way this program would work is that existing Black farmers and new Black farmers will identify privately owned farms that are for sale, and USDA would then purchase the farm for fair market value and convey it to the Black farmer. Every Black farmer that receives a land grant would have access to USDA operating loans and home mortgages on favorable terms, and would be able to participate in a farmer training program to learn about both the business side of farming as well as regenerative practices. The land grant program is set up in the bill to operate at a big enough scale to address the magnitude of what has been lost due to discrimination over the past century, with a goal of allowing hundreds of thousands of farmers to return to the land. The bill would also create a new Farm Conservation Corps, modeled after the Civilian Conservation Corps that FDR created as part of the New Deal. The program would allow young people to get training from the USDA and paid experience in on-the-farm apprenticeships, working on small farms all around the country. This would allow participants from a variety of backgrounds, from socially disadvantaged backgrounds, people of different races. It would allow those participants to be involved in that apprenticeship program, that core. Young Black participants who complete the program and decide they want to continue in farming would have priority to receive a land grant. And the final pillar of the bill is focused on larger systemic reforms that we know are needed, not just to help Black farmers, but that are needed to help all small and mid-sized farms to have a chance to fairly compete. COVID-19 has really shined a light on just how broken many parts of our food system are. We have seen farmers plowing over crops and killing healthy animals, while millions of hungry Americans wait on food lines at food banks. And we have seen meatpacking plants become COVID hotspots with workers getting sick and dying, while big consolidated meat companies make record profits. To address this broken system, the bill would strengthen the Packers and Stockyard Act in order to finally level the playing field so that both the independent family farmers and the contract growers have a chance to fairly compete and make a living. And now there's one additional aspect of the bill that I want to just briefly talk about, though, that is the investment that we are proposing to make in HBCUs and in nonprofits with experience in providing assistance to Black farmers. The bill would invest in historically Black colleges and universities so that they can expand their courses of study focused on careers in agriculture and on research related to regenerative agricultural practices. In addition, the bill would invest in the 1890 land-grant universities and the nonprofits that have had a track record of providing assistance to Black farmers. The 1890s and the nonprofits would then be available to provide assistance to Black farmers in identifying land for a land grant, filling out land grant applications with the USDA, getting their farm up and running, and with other legal assistance or succession planning that Black farmers might need. If a Black farmer does not need or want any assistance, they don't need to work with any of the nonprofit partners. This bill is simply making that assistance available from the 1890s and nonprofits in order to give Black farmers in need of assistance the best possible chance to succeed. I want to close my comments with this. We know that achieving justice for Black farmers will not be easy. We know that there's no quick fix to centuries of discrimination, of wretched, shameful parts of our history that undermined hundreds of billions of dollars of land wealth in the African American community. We know we have a fight. We know we have a hill to climb. But I'm committed to this fight, and I know so many of you are as well. We will try to build support for this bill in the Senate as quickly as we can. And I'll try hard to have as much of this bill possible to be included in discussions for the next farm bill, which isn't that far away. We have to, when we talk about racial justice in America, make sure we understand its connection to environmental justice, to economic justice, to reforming a criminal justice system, to so many areas, but we cannot exclude the urgencies when we're talking about Blacks in agriculture. This is urgent work and must be a part of the healing, must be a part of the justice we seek in America. For anyone watching who wants to know how you can help be a part of this bill, to support this bill, to help it, please reach out to your member of Congress in 2021 and ask them to sign on as a co-sponsor, or reach out to my office as well to figure out how you can be a part of what I believe will be a growing movement for change. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Booker, to Representative David Scott, and to Leader Abrams. We will now go into a couple of questions, so bear with me as I'm going to add all of our esteemed guests into the spotlight right now. And if you really like these transitions, you're welcome. Okay. I'm gonna add right here. Oh, we like a little foursome right here. In registration for this event, we ask that participants submit questions to be answered today. Upon review and collection with the planning team, we found many similar themes in the questions. Please note that many of you called attention to the lack of inclusion of agriculture and farming in the industry tab. That was elevated to Zoom, as it was generated automatically by Zoom and did not give an edit option. I made sure to give them your feedback, and I'm glad that you were able to call us in on that. Senator Booker, we had several questions about whether the legislation provides a path for African Americans to enter into the farming space who have previously not been farmers, and also several questions on how it can help women farmers, urban farmers, and youth. Can you please speak to that?
I am glad to be asked to speak to that, because we expect there will be tens of thousands of land grants provided to Black individuals who have not been previously farmers, including young people who participate in the Farm Conservation Corps as an apprenticeship program. They will be eligible for land grants. And to help ensure their success, as I said earlier, these new Black farmers will be provided access to the USDA operating loans and mortgages on favorable terms, as well as farmer training focused on both the business side, as I said, and what I think is really exciting is this whole new area of regenerative agricultural and farming practices. And then what I'm excited about, being as former mayor, when it comes to urban farming, I fully expect to have new Black farmers in both rural and urban locations. The land grant program will provide opportunities for new existing Black farmers to have access of land grants up to 160 acres. But this land can be located in any part of the country, urban, suburban, or rural. And some folks may be interested in starting an urban farm on a 1 acre plot of land in a city like mine in Newark, where I live. In fact, when I was mayor, we had a whole city block became an urban farm and produced thousands of pounds of food for a community that was demanding that food. And so while some might identify larger plots in rural parts of, say, Georgia or another state, regardless of size or location, each grant is going to be selected by farmers themselves, and no, they do not have to have previously been a farmer. Our hope is that we can restore African Americans who in every century were a major part of the agricultural strength of America, that this is something we correct for this century, the sins of the past that stripped them of so much land.
Thank you for that. There were also several questions submitted on how this bill might impact Indigenous farmers and Indigenous communities, and if the bill would address the discrimination that they also have suffered. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I want to say hallelujah. I mean, this is really an important question because we know that Black farmers are not the only ones that have suffered discrimination. During the drafting of this bill, which was really a great experience for my team and I, in addition to reaching out to Black farmers and advocates, we reached out and received a lot of input and feedback on the bill from Indigenous farming groups. And we launched many provisions into this bill that would benefit Indigenous farmers, Latino farmers, as well as Black farmers. For example, the new bank that we create in this bill to make sure Black farmers have access to financing and grants under very favorable terms will also make funds available to assist Indigenous farmers as well. And so I'm very grateful to the Intertribal Agricultural Council and the Native Farm Bill Coalition that they endorsed this bill. And I look forward to working with additional legislation in the future, really to benefit Indigenous farmers.
Thank you for that. Representative Scott, we received a question from John Wilson from Georgia saying, I would like to better understand the fiscal year 2021 agenda regarding veteran, Black, and small farmers. Would you be able to share some insight?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think the agenda starting out will be centered around a series of hearings. These hearings are vitally important because we will be bringing in those individuals within the agriculture sectors who will be able to share information. Now, first of all, we will, and the senator mentioned the 1890s. Well, we have already gotten the 1890s really into the pipeline. And I did that because you need to have an anchor base there of which to deal with the inclusion factors of African American people. There's no other reason than what happened after the Civil War. What did they do? In order to prop up their economies and move, every state put in their colleges of higher learning. That is how the South rose. We must use that same kind of platform to lift up our people. So right now, our African American colleges and universities, 19, the land grants, have $80 million within that will have them going through the Farm Bill. Top of the agenda is to have the 19 presidents of these colleges come back before the committee in a hearing so they can share with the Congress how great this program is. And then we can use that hearing, collecting information, where they will come in and say the things that have been done, the avenues that have been opened, because the purpose of that being top of the agenda is to lay the foundation for making that program a permanent program. When you have a financial package moving, you got to build on it. That's what they did with the white colleges and universities all throughout the region. We got to learn from that and do that. So as far as that agenda, we have got to make what we've got permanent, that we have money. In order to do that, we have to have that amount increased to what we call baseline. That means that the money value will go up. So that from 80 million, that's going to come to close to 100 or 200 million, because it has to be at least 3 or 4 million for each school. for it to be baseline. That means it's not discretionary funding. It is permanent funding, mandatory funding. That was my biggest fight. It's not just getting the money. I had to fight like hell to get them because the Republicans wanted to come in there and make it discretionary. I said, how in the world you think I'm gonna give our Black colleges money for 4-year scholarships and it's on discretionary? Discretion means maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But we got it permanent. Now, there will be other programs that we also have in place to move, where we need to make sure, I mean, there's so many things we could pivot out through making sure the 1890s financial engine is secure. That's first thing. We got money there. We got to make that secure. Then we can have offshoots of that. As the senator mentioned, there are other needs, financial needs, credit needs. Some will want to go into farming. How do they get access to land? When right now, farming is unlike anything else. You want to go into farming, that means you got to get land. And right now, in many parts of the country, an acre of land is $5,000 or $6,000, depending on where you are. How do they get that money? We can set that up. If we want to expand it on out to Hispanic-oriented institutions, the Native Americans, that's how you do it. You have to have, it's sort of like priming the pump, but you got to have the pump in a variety of different areas. And you mentioned veteran and small farmers. We are going to have to do something, first of all, to rescue farming territory, our crops, agriculture, our food supply. It doesn't come from the cities. It comes from the rural areas where the land is available. Well, unless we move to get that area qualified into rural broadband and close the urban divide, we have that going on at our African-American land grant colleges and universities to make sure that our rural communities, where you have predominantly African-American parts, are not overlooked. We've got to connect our rural areas because if we don't, you're going to have young people leaving there. So it's a majority of different things. We need to also put the rural broadband there for telehealth, telemedicine, teleeducation. If you don't, where are they going to go? What's going to happen to the areas where our agriculture and farming is? How is a small family farm that your questionnaire had question about? How is he going to be able to do it? So that's why we have the agenda of that. Now, one other thing, we got to make sure disaster aid. I'm putting forward a bill that will do this right now. Our farms are suffering greatly when the hurricanes come through, the tornadoes come through. In California, half of the coast there is burning up with fires. Something is going on up there. There was a movie called Somebody Up There Likes Me with Paul Newman. Some of you may have seen that movie. If you do, it's a good movie. It just came to me. But somebody up there don't like the agriculture. If we got fires here, we got floods coming, we got a lot of things. That's why the other hearing will be on climate change. If we don't solve that, that of course is a number one. And the Black farmers our Black colleges and universities getting that scholarship program permanent, disaster aid. These are the elements that I've already got my staff, met with my staff, we've unloaded, we've got these hearings. Because here's how it works in agriculture, almost in any business. You got to bring the experts in. You got to get people in. Our task, your task, my task is to make sure that the Black farmer's perspective is in each of these hearings. That is our agenda. And I hope that I've answered the gentleman's question for 2021.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Leader Abrams, we had one participant ask, how can I help? Do you have advice for how groups, individuals, and coalitions can best be engaged?
Absolutely. So I would start by saying every person on this Zoom, every person watching this webinar, anyone watching it on Facebook or who replays it, you need to absolutely follow the request of Senator Booker, contact your congressman, contact your senators, and offer support for the Justice for Black Farmers Act. Part of what happens is we get excited about opportunities, but we forget to fight for them. And it's not enough to talk to one another about it. We already agree with each other. We can't preach to the choir. We've got to preach and create the converted. And so begin by reaching out to your legislators at the federal level to talk to them about this bill. And likewise, when the farm bill starts moving, Congressman Scott's going to need your support. He's going to be doing innovative things that are going to be challenging to a status quo. When he puts out the call and says, we need to hear from you, that means you. And that means everyone you know and everyone who shares your values, everyone who's concerned about this future. So make certain that we don't simply complain about what doesn't get done. We've got to lift up our voices and be heard in the process. Lobbying works. If it didn't, there would not be a K Street, and very, very many things that happen wouldn't happen. We have to start to use these convening powers, but also our participation powers for our communities. Number two, I would think about talking to your state legislators. For many of us, we know the person that we might know the name of the person who gets elected in our district, but often, especially if we live in urban communities or suburban communities, we don't talk to them about these issues. During the course of my tenure as the Democratic leader, I had 2 meetings that were initiated by farmers to talk to me. They assumed that because I was from Atlanta that I wouldn't care, but my job was to care about their issues. And so don't presume that someone doesn't care, presume they don't know. And begin your engagement with your state legislators with education. Do not begin with hostility for their inaction, begin with concern for your community. Because if you come into a space offering to provide information, people will listen. If you're coming in to lecture, people will tune out. But when you invite people to be a part of your success, especially politicians, we are eager to know more and we're eager to take credit for doing more. So use that and make certain that you meet your state legislators. Because as both Congressman Scott and as Senator Booker pointed out, many of the solutions that are embedded in the Justice for Farmers Act or embedded in the work that's going to be done by Chairman Scott will have state legislative components. And it does not help if there is a federal law that is impeded by state legislation. If the state isn't willing to do its part, the federal law will have only so much effect. And so make it your mission in this upcoming 2021 year to get to know your state legislators. Don't wait until there's a crisis. Show up at the beginning and keep showing up. And it may be physically, it may be that you're asking for a Zoom call. You have the power of convening because 2022 is an election year and folks will always, state legislators get elected every 2 years, by and large in the South. And so use that as a reason to reach out to your state legislators and again, educate them about the issues and invite them to be your supporters. Do not concern yourself with where they're from. Concern yourself with what you need. Number 3, we have to pay attention to the cycles of politics. This is not a political space, but politics affect all of us. That means we've got to be paying attention to redistricting in 2021. In 2021, the 2020 census will be used to allocate political power and economic dollars. But that political power has to be informed by our needs. Some of you are going to think, well, it's just going to happen the way it's going to happen. No, we have to show up, because if you want a legislator who cares about the needs of Black farmers, they need to know that there are Black farmers in their district that they need to care about. We have to show up at these redistricting hearings, and they're going to happen across the country. Show up, because we only have Chairman Scott as long as there are enough people in the legislature to keep him as Chairman Scott. We need to make certain that our legislative leaders share our values and reflect our needs. And for Black farmers, that means continuing to build on what is an unprecedented number of African-American legislators, many of whom are from the South. One of the reasons we are starting to see the kind of progress we're seeing, it's because we finally hit a critical mass in numbers where we have legislative power that is caught up with our demographic change. Demography is not destiny, it is opportunity. And our opportunities have gotten better every single cycle. We no longer have just one Black US Senator. We no longer have not a single African-American chairman from the Deep South. We now have opportunities to create and foment change, but that can change in an instant if we do not participate in redistricting. So I would encourage you to visit faircount.org, the organization I created to focus on the US Census and on redistricting, because this is not a partisan issue. This is how we get to pick the people who speak for us. And if we are silent in that process, we will be silent in the outcome. And so please go to faircount.org to learn more about redistricting and to sign up so you can learn more about how you can participate. Do not confuse what happened with the US Census with the farm census. That's the other piece I want to flag for folks. It is going to be critically important that when the next farm census goes out, that everyone responds. Much of the work that Congressman Scott's going to do, much of the allocations that will be coming before his committee will be based on the responses from that farm census. And unfortunately, Black and brown farmers are the least likely to complete that census. You can't closed mouth doesn't get fed. So we've got to speak up and say that we're here. So please pay attention to that. And the last thing I'll say is this. I have a way of describing what I need folks to do. First, I need you to speak up. We don't necessarily know what you need, but we want to help you. And so speak up and share your information. You are the most important advocates for your issues. And one person is a story. But when we hear dozens or hundreds of people, that becomes a movement. And it takes movements to make change in the United States. So speak up. Secondly, I need you to show up. When they are having committee hearings, when they are having conversations, do not wait to be invited. Consider this your invitation. This is your country. This is your state. It is your right to be in those spaces, and don't come alone. You need a witness and you need a ride. So show up. So speak up first, show up, and then finally stand up. When I said when I said you should support the work that's going to be done on the Justice for Black Farmers bill, when I said you need to show up when Congressman Scott is having those hearings as the chairman, that's about standing up for our values. But if we don't stand up for ourselves, if we don't stand up and defend these issues, if we don't stand up and say we have a right to an entitlement to the American dream that we helped build, why should anyone else? This conversation is so important to me and to Jenny and to SEEP that not only have we held these convenings, at Jenny's recommendation, we are creating a a year-long fellowship, someone who's going to be committed to doing nothing but working on Black farmer issues through SEEP. We know this is a 12-state national conversation. SEEP focuses on the South, and we are committing to having a grad student who's going to be fully funded for her fellowship or his fellowship for the course of 2021, to be a resource to help connect with Senator Booker's office, to help connect with Chairman Scott's work. We are here because we're in this with you. And I want to end with this. We believe that by helping Black farmers, we help America. We know that by working with Black farmers, we change the future. And we want to be a part of this with you. And so SEEP is proud to make our small investment by being a point of resource, a point of connection, and as always, a bridge builder so we can get good done.
Thank you so much, Leader Abrams, Representative Scott, and Senator Booker. Thank you all for your insight, your experience, your support, your everything, for being here, for having a vision. And we understand that you all have busy schedules, and we appreciate your time with us today. We received several other questions about reparations, debt relief, and representation, and we will be providing all those questions to Senator Booker's office and Representative Scott's office for follow-up. We will also put the contact information for their staff should you have any other questions. To our esteemed guests, we are so happy that you were able to join us. You are more than welcome to stay and hear from Angela, Carolyn, and Tracy, but we understand if you must get off. We appreciate your time and your leadership. Thank you all so very much.
Stacey's got to go win some Georgia Senate seats, so please.
Yeah, and I want to tell Stacey, with that kind of passion, when I do have my hearing for all the Black farmers, I got to tell Catherine, my chief of staff there, to make sure she gets in touch with you.
I'm there.
So you can come before the committee as well. We're going to light a fire under this, honey.
Chairman, she's already the hardest working woman in America these days.
I know it.
We're going to make her James Brown squared because
we got to do it, man. and with that passion, how can we lose, man?
Yes. Amen. Hallelujah. She's got me ready to go out and chop down some trees right now.
I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to have my hearing right now for Black farmers and bring Stacey on there.
Amen.
Gotta come. Catherine will be in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
See that name, Catherine Kervitz, on the phone. You know, she's letting you know when we're going to have that hearing to help our Black farmers.
Yes, sir.
God bless you, Stacey. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Congressman, save those drapes behind you. I can make a good suit out of them.
Oh, all right. Hey, man, you like those?
I like that. That'd make a cool, great suit for me. Lime green, looking good.
Thank you both. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Congressman. I want to make sure we leave some space for Carolyn Jones, Tracy, Lloyd, McCurty, and Angela Provost. So please stay on the call so you can learn from farmers and organizations that are advocating for your betterment. Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you so much, Senator. And Jenny, thank you as always for fantastic convenings. And I look forward to hearing more about what happens tonight. I'm off to go win some races. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Leader. Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you so much, Congressman. All right, everybody. We got to keep this party going because this is what it is. And we are so honored to have these women come and speak about their experience. A conversation about a bill calling for justice for Black farmers would not be complete without hearing directly from the Black farming community. We are honored to have Carolyn Jones, Angela Provost, and Tracy Lloyd McCurty. First up, Carolyn Jones is the director of the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance, MMFA, a Mississippi-based nonprofit corporation formed by a group of Black farmers and landowners who saw a need within the farming community. MMFA's mission is to improve the lives of farmers and landowners through outreach, assistance, and training in the areas of agricultural education, farm management, and rural development. It is a pleasure to have you here today, Carolyn.
Okay, can you hear me, Jenny?
Sure can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you so much to the panelists. I am honored to be in your presence, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Let me first thank this committee for allowing me to finally be represented as a Black person. In the field, we get tired of trying not to defend anyone by calling ourselves by terms put in place to placate and not offend a white person that we might receive support from. We have become represented and referred to as socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, minority farmers and ranchers, limited resource farmers and ranchers, and other names. I have always been offended by these labels because I am an unapologetically Black farmer. And I am so proud to be a part of this campaign of Justice for Black Farmers Act. As farmers, as a farmer and descendant of farmers and sharecroppers, my husband and I work within the Black farming community in Mississippi to educate our farmers on programs available through USDA and other federal agencies. In our 20+ years of experience in dealing with USDA, I think I am more than qualified to render an opinion on this agency. In the late 1970s, my husband and I owned and operated the largest Black-owned feeder pig operation in North Mississippi. We were young and thought we could conquer the world. Well, little did we know what would happen when we applied for USDA assistance in improving our operation. Our experience seemed okay in the beginning. We had a plan. We had drawn up to ask for assistance to increase our operation. We talked with USDA loan officers and presented our plan. In reviewing our plan, the loan officer made modifications, and he said that once the part one of our plan was implemented, then we would need to come back into USDA what we want to do. We received a call some weeks later from that USDA official telling us that our loan had been approved, but they didn't have the money to fund our project. So the option that he presented to us was for us to go to our local bank and apply for the loan, show them our approval letter, and the bank would contact USDA and USDA would stand for the loan. We did this. We received the loan. We began our operation. And 30 days into the program, the money had not come through. We received a call from the bank telling us that we would have to start paying interest on the loan. They were going to start charging us interest. We contacted USDA. They didn't have the money. 60 days went by. Still did not have the money. It was 90+ days before we were able to get the funding to repay the bank loan. By that time, we had incurred quite a bit of interest because of the size of the loan. USDA refused to pay off on the interest. So we had to actually borrow money from the bank to pay the interest on the loan that we had gotten from USDA. This put us behind in some of our projects. We were able to complete the building of our buildings, and we went back into the USDA office to request the additional operating loan. When we got in the office, it was a new loan officer there. We were told that we should never have gotten that loan and there was no more money available for us. At this time, we were 3/4 of the way into our operation and we couldn't stop. So we had to go back to our bank and borrow money to purchase the livestock for our farm. When we sold our livestock, USDA had attached a lien to all of that property that they did not have a lien on. When we got our original loan, they had a lien on our property and our land, on our buildings and our land, but they did not have a lien on our livestock. The USDA basically forced us into bankruptcy because to get that second loan in order to purchase our livestock, we had to take a second lien out on our home. So I know firsthand about the programs that USDA offers, and I know about the services that have been offered to citizens and farmers in Mississippi. Then after that, we still trying to farm. We heard about the Pickford lawsuit. And we were actually claimants in the Pickford lawsuit. The process to get this assistance to Black farmers, and applying for a claim through Pickford was horrible. Those assisting us did not really want to hear our story. They just told us what track we qualified for and signed us up. We signed up for track A. We had to go to the county courthouse basement to search for UCCs of similarly situated white farmers and provide this information, which seemed very unfair to us because the USDA had made these loans and they had access to that information. It seemed to be a barrier that they were putting in place to try and discourage us. We were denied the USDA loan. We were denied assistance through Pickford because USDA said that they did not have any record of us farming. I knew this was a lie. So I went through my storage and all of the records that I had kept from USDA, and I finally found a letter from USDA official confirming that we had indeed applied for emergency assistance through their program. We submitted this information through another legal firm that was working with the Pickford claimants who had been denied. We received $50,000, which was an insult to us and other farmers for all that we had lost in dealing with USDA. Farmers in our community lost land. We were blessed not to lose our land because we were able to get that second mortgage. But you have to understand the dealings of USDA then in order to understand now what is going on. Fast forward to today. Has there been improvements in USDA? I'll let you decide. In the counties that we operate, there are very few to no Black employees in the county offices. And when an employee leaves a job in one of those offices, it's not announced. You go into the office and you just see another white face, usually one person that is related to someone else that's in another office. And that's how they exchange employees in these offices. There was one time that we found out in advance that an employee was leaving and we attempted to get a qualified Black person in that position. They kept putting us off. They were not going to fill the position, or they were going to, the person that was in that position was going to become a part-time worker. Then one day we go into the office, there's a new employee there, and she's the daughter of one of the employees from another county office. That's how it works in these offices. And I'm not talking about in the 70s. I'm talking about in 2020, 2019, 2018. One of our farmers recently, as in 2019, went into a USDA office and asked the clerk there, why was he and other Black farmers not able to get assistance when all of the white farmers were getting help? And he was told by that USDA employee in 2019, well, they're the ones who pay taxes. That's what we're dealing with now. When we started helping farmers to apply for assistance through USDA programs, we were literally told by one of the US employees that since we were bringing in so many farmers to get them signed up for these programs, that we would no longer be able to get assistance through USDA. Our farm is in one county and my family farm is in another county. I applied for assistance in the county where my family farm is located because I'm the operator of that farm. And I pay taxes in that county. I was told that I could not receive assistance on my farm, on my family farm, because I was receiving assistance on my farm in another county where I live. I pulled the USDA regs and explained to the county agent that that was not true. I continue to this day to apply for assistance and I continue to be denied. The excuse now for my denial is through the ranking system and my application is not ranking high enough. We pay taxes in both counties and we should be able to receive assistance in those counties. And if I can't receive assistance in those counties, then no other farmer should be able to. If you go on the farms of any of the USDA employees, and believe you me, we have been to many, the farms of their families, the farms of their friends, these are top dollar farms. They use your USDA, they use our tax dollars and use USDA dollars to put them to work on their farms. They are on the committees, they vote for the practices that they want implemented on their farms, and then they implement those practices on their farms with taxpayer dollars. The USDA buddy system is out of control. And until it is corrected, we're not going to see much change on the local level. The US county committees in our area are predominantly white males, and they hold a lot of power. One thing that keeps me fighting the most is knowing that they are trying to destroy our youth. There is an effort underway to dumb down America, and it's starting with our youth. Not only are elected officials cutting funding to our public schools while increasing funding to private schools, schools today are not preparing our children for success. In our area, they are taking ag education and financial literacy programs out of Black schools, claiming budget cuts. In order to fill a void in the community, we provide ag education to our youth, and we have even chartered our own 4-H club. We established a youth demonstration farm and partnered with local churches to provide ag education to our youth. In January, we will open our after-school and parenthood initiative programs for students and their parents in our area. COVID-19 has exposed the inequalities in our communities in areas of health, education, housing, and nutrition. We are sicker and dying at alarming rates. Our schools are not prepared to provide virtual education to our children. In our rural farming communities, we are in a crisis. We have parents who are driving and parking on the parking lots of grocery stores and Walmart and other types of businesses just to be able to get access to broadband for their children so that they can do their homework. We found out just how malicious, racist, and downright mean some of those in positions of power at these USDA local county committee and these USDA centers and county committee members. When your hate is so strong that you would mistreat children, I think you are the lowest of the low. As an example of what I'm referring to, our youth ag program, with our youth ag program, we annually host a youth ag day on our farm for children in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We've done this since 2016. There are 3 schools that are in our district in Northeast Mississippi that attend this program. We usually have from 300 to 350 students on our farm receiving hands-on training in ag education for first aid and fire safety, bike safety, water safety, ATV safety, and information on anti-bullying programs. In 2018, as our numbers grew, we needed additional assistance to help with the cost to conduct this field day. We were aware that the schools in predominantly white districts were receiving USDA support in the form of funding and supplies to host their field days. So we met with USDA county committee members and soil and water conservationists in the counties where these schools are located that attend our program. One county told us that they would maybe get us some coloring books to give to the students, which we never received. One county donated $250, and one county committee chairman had the nerve to ask us, why did we even want to help these schools? And they refused to offer support. That is what we're facing in our communities today. We have been working very hard to get our Black farmers elected to these county committees, and we've had very little success. Definitely not enough to make any difference in our communities. When we started helping farmers apply and receive assistance in some of the USDA programs, we were literally having to fight to get just the information that we would give a farmer. They would go into the USDA office and would be told something totally different. There was an effort by some USDA officials to discredit what we were trying to do with our farmers. That is what we're facing today. And that's why this bill gives me so much hope. I was so proud to present this to our members, and I was so proud to present it to our board of directors. And we are proud to be in support of this bill and of this act and anything that we can do. We are ready and available. And I thank you so much, Stacey. I thank you, Jenny. I thank you, Senator Booker. I thank you, Congressman Scott. And I thank all of you who are on this call because you give me hope. We are in this together. It's not about the South, the North, East, or West. We're all Black farmers. We're all in this together. And we have a right in this country to live the same type of life that anyone else has. And it is time out for begging somebody to do what is right. We must take care of our children. They're our legacy, and we must teach them. And in order to teach them, we must stand up for what is right. We must show them that we love them, and we must embrace them, and we must show them that they are somebody. That's one of the things that really resonates with me. Is our youth and what they're doing, what they're suffering through. And they should not have to suffer through that. And I think that this act will be wonderful. I love what is happening with this act with the 1890 institutions. And I think that is very much needed. Education is needed. And again, I am proud to be a part of this Zoom meeting. I am proud to be a part of this group. And I thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Thank you. I've put in the chat a link to her website, so you all will be able to visit the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for your words. We are very happy that you were here. We now have the honor of introducing the wonderful Angela Provost. Angela Provost is a farmer and activist and understands the important role agriculture plays in community development. While consulting with other organizations for the purposes of achieving progressive business models or increasing crop production, Angela also had real-time experience of operating her own farm. That knowledge drives her mission for equity within the global food system. Please welcome Angela Provost.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Provost, and I live in New Iberia, Louisiana. It's a beautiful small town about 2 hours west of New Orleans and is inspiration for the book and TV series Queen Sugar. But that Hollywood narrative about Black farmers doesn't hold a candle to the brutal real-life tactics used as tools by our local USDA offices, banks, and mills in an attempt to keep us a powerless and landless people. My husband's and my story have been featured in the 1619 Project, Guardian, and NBC Left Field. We are both multi-generational farmers. He was the operator of a nearly 5,000 acre farm, while I cultivated around 400 acres of land and the #1 lobby crop in the US, sugarcane. Through acts of discrimination and reprisal against us, most of that farmland and leases have been lost. Statistically, there were approximately 60 Afro or Afro-Indigenous families farming sugarcane prior to the 1990s. Today, there are less than 5. As Southern rural Black farmers, our communities often sit adjacent to the families who once enslaved our ancestors. And while we continue to witness our white neighbors and their farms thrive, our people are forced to abandon their homesteads and their farms through acts of foreclosure by the USDA or local USDA guaranteed banks, perpetuating a system of ill-gotten gains. June's and my experience is not isolated. We simply decided to talk publicly about it, foregoing any fears of retaliation we may have or would experience within or outside of our own communities. When you hear our story, we hope you develop an understanding of the gaping wound that is racism in America. Call yourself to action and understand how the US government and land dispossession are key components to the various issues that are detrimental to Black and Brown communities, including access to voter rights, mass incarceration, fair pay, housing, food insecurity, immigration reform, and climate change. There is so much to tell that a few minutes of your time could not cover the full extent of the trauma placed on Black farmers. Some personal examples of the deeply distressing acts we've endured are as follows. In spring of 2014, after being alerted by a USDA whistleblower who is no hero, my husband and I discovered that his USDA guaranteed lender had been photocopying his signature to numerous guaranteed applications, all in an attempt to decrease loan funding and delay approval time without our knowledge. Later that year, after getting into a contract dispute with a local sugar mill and one of the largest plantations in South Louisiana, mill representatives tried to, in writing, coerce both June and me into a more punitive and rigorous contract. By using false claims against us and measures of intimidations, they hoped we would succumb to various tactics of blackmail and humiliation into releasing them from obligations they previously had with my husband. All while this vast milling operation and plantation continues to use USDA dollars through FSA and the Commodity Credit Corporation to process farmers' sugarcane. As if things couldn't get any worse in 2014, a USDA county committeeman with access to our acre reports pursued and overtook our farm leases for the benefit of his own farm. But again, those are just examples, right? Like many other Black farmers, we've been placed in a system which is a residual of America's worst sins: slavery, Jim Crow, and an anti-Black agenda. Deepening that wound, we were subjected to over-policing through supervised bank accounts and placed in a system of debt peonage through acts of fraud against us and over-collateralization of all our possessions. I see the Justice for Black Farmers Act as an effort to acknowledge and redress these problems, and I thank everyone wholeheartedly for their participation in crafting and publicizing this bill for our critique. While we support this awesome piece of legislation, we hope to see greater moves towards pure reparations in order to have closure on all of these issues. Often the problem of addressing and reforming civil rights in America is approached with too much civility and are not looked at through the lens of crimes against humanity. Because Black people are in all spaces and places, June and I decided to come up with our own additions that we think could be added to the bill or moved forward in a certain way. They include direct tax-free grants to Black farmers, directly in Black farmers' hands, not filtering through nonprofits. Fair pay and health insurance for farm workers, because they are farmers too. Implementation of a similar Green New Deal plan towards conservation and sustainability. We'd also like to see a council of historical healing that looks into solidarity efforts between Black and Brown communities to openly address land dispossession, and that moves forward to repair the damages of anti-Blackness and assimilation. To avoid the abuse that could and will probably come out of such legislation, Congress needs to create more punitive acts on institutions that violate the very missions of repair. Some of those examples would be increase the time of statute of limitations to file civil rights claims or lawsuits against the USDA and its guaranteed lenders. Remove the PLP and CLP status from USDA guaranteed lenders who don't show a proven track record of not only lending to multiple Black farmers, but making sure that those Black farmers have the ability to succeed. Also, the USDA must stop lending to and conspiring with mills, refineries, and factories that discriminate against Black farmers. Allow for greater monetary relief through the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Establish hate crime laws to certain nonviolent civil rights violations that are causing slow deaths and sufferings in our community. Above all, pay us our debt and protect our natural resources. The Justice for Black Farmers is an awesome act and a good start. I thank you for your time. I am honored to be in this space, and I look forward to this conversation with you all. Many blessings to you at this historic time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. Really appreciate your words. We've also put in the website information for Angela and June's Provost business. So please make sure to support them and visit their website. Up next, we are honored to have Tracy Lloyd McCurty. Tracy Lloyd McCurty is the co-founder and executive director of the Black Belt Justice Center, a legal and advocacy nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation and regeneration of African-American farmlands and land-based livelihoods through effective legal representation, advocacy, and community education. For over 15 years, Tracy has served as a legal advocate on a range of issues disparingly affecting the African diaspora community. As a legal however, her most cherished work has been in service of multi-generational farm families living on this land in the rural South. She received her BS from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, and a JD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Law. It's been an honor to work and coordinate this amazing webinar with Tracy the last couple of days and weeks, and just for her tireless effort of all the work that she continues to do. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Grand Rising, everyone. I'm always ignited in determination and purpose when I hear the personal narratives of our Black legacy farmers. The axe forgets what the tree remembers is an African proverb that comes to memory when I hear farmers standing in their truths regarding the interlocking systems of white domination that have resulted in 98% of farmland being owned by European Americans and the alarming erosion of the Black agricultural land base. I want to acknowledge Stacey Abrams and SEEP for co-creating this community space to engage with the Justice for Black Farmers Act of 2020. Stacey Abrams, SEEP, and Georgia State Representative Gloria Frazier have been servant leaders and allies to Black rural communities and our Georgia farmer clients. SEEP didn't hesitate when I asked if we could make this webinar happen. They took the ball and they were off. Thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge U.S. Senators Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and Kirsten Gillibrand for introducing the Justice for Black Farmers Act. It is a promising first step. As we go forward, we will need to deepen our commitment to a community-based policymaking process as modeled by both Senators Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker. We look forward to ongoing engagement with U.S. Representative David Scott in his new role as House Ag Chairman. The 500+ year pursuit of the descendants of enslaved Africans and melanated Aboriginals on this land to be free of racial caste and anti-Black physical, economic, and cultural violence is a sacred circle of collective triumphs, defeats, and rebirths. If you study Black agrarian history, you know that the land has always served as a compass for our liberation, economic autonomy, and sovereignty. At the end of the Civil War, celebrated abolitionist and scholar Frederick Douglass proposed the creation of a 100 million capitalized national land bank to acquire and resell land on equitable terms to African Americans. Fast forward in time to June 28th, 1990, when U.S. Representative Mike Espy introduced the Minority Farmers' Rights Act of 1990, which sought to restore the level of Black land ownership to 15 million acres by the year 2000. I'm gonna say that one more time. The Minority Farmers' Rights Act of 1990 sought to restore the level of Black land ownership to 15 million acres by the year 2000 by providing Black farmers the right of first refusal to acquire land and USDA inventory. This provision was actually codified into law, but few, if any, Black farmers have been successful in obtaining information from USDA regarding land in current inventory to purchase. I was speaking to Ms. Jones last night, and she shared that every year she asks about the inventory list, and she's always told that there's no inventory. And it's reminiscent of the Southern Homestead Act, where Black farm families receive less than 1,000 land titles. This week, I have spoken to so many of our elder farmers regarding their hopes for a speedy enactment of the Justice for Black Farmers Act. Many have asked their children and grandchildren to set up their Zoom and Facebook accounts so that they could participate in today's webinar. In preparing my remarks, I had a burning desire to speak to an elder Pigford legacy farmer. I spoke to Elder Bernard Bates, an 83-year-old legacy farmer from Hill City, Kansas. Elder Bates' grandfather was an exoduster who sought to create beloved community with other African Americans in Nicodemus, Kansas, the first all-Black community west of the Mississippi River. Through grit and determination, Elder Bates was able to build upon his grandfather's 200 acres, owning 950 acres of land. In 1974, Elder Bates filed a discrimination complaint against the local county supervisor for denying him both farm ownership and emergency loans. In 1983, Elder Bates wrote his senator, Bob Dole, and President Ronald Reagan. His daughter, Carla Bates Adams, shared with me the handwritten notes her father wrote to Senator Bob Dole and President Ronald Reagan. She also shared President Reagan's response through a USDA administrator, which was essentially that USDA had no oversight over the local credit association. Ms. Bates Adams also shared an affidavit from an official of the credit association that detailed collusion between the local credit association, the Federal Land Bank, and Farmers Home Administration, now called Farm Service Agency, to dispossess Elder Bates of his farmland. Later in 1983, President Reagan dismantled the Office of Civil Rights, the investigative arm of discrimination complaints. The Office of Civil Rights would not be fully staffed until 1998. The Credit Association foreclosed on Elder Bates, and he lost all 950 acres of generational wealth and family land memory. Elder Bates was denied compensation under the Pickford v. Glickman class action racial discrimination lawsuit. Elder Bates still owes $200,000 and climbing in debt to USDA. Most of the media coverage regarding the Justice for Black Farmers Act has not addressed the historic legislative remedy for our Black elder farmers. To be clear, there can be no Justice for Black Farmers Act without justice for Pigford legacy farmers. The act provides full debt cancellation, federal tax relief, and a foreclosure moratorium for Black legacy farmers who filed claims under the Pickford v. Glickman consent decree. It was reassuring to hear Senator Booker discuss how in the revised version of the bill, state tax relief and a return of offsets will be included for our legacy farmers. Currently, over 17,000 Black farmers are delinquent on their loans to USDA and have been ranging from 5 to 30 years. Most of this debt originated from the racist misdeeds of USDA. This debt was supposed to be forgiven under the Pickford Settlement Agreement, but due to a range of factors, including attorney malpractice, incompetence, and the aggressive posture of the U.S. Department of Justice in fighting the claims of our farmers, only 4.8% of the $1 billion Pickford One settlement went to debt cancellation of USDA operating loans. The Pickford One farmers never received economic redress from the $1.25 billion bill signed by President Barack Obama in 2010 to provide compensation to late claimants in Pickford 2. To illustrate the inequity, the recent New York Times article revealed that President Trump has dispersed over $46 billion in subsidies this year alone to mostly white farmers, corporate farms. For 20 years, aging Black farmers have delayed USDA foreclosures by pooling their resources and filing complaints in federal court pro se without attorney representation. Black farmers continue to have their Social Security, disability, tax funds, and subsidy payments offset to cover outstanding debts. Elder Eddie Slaughter, a double amputee farmer advocate from Buena Vista, Georgia, had his Social Security, peanut subsidy, and disability payments offset for over 9 years, amounting to over $41,000. For 20 years, our farmers have not been able to fully activate their freedom dreams because they have been locked out of credit from USDA and other lending sources due to this shackle of debt. Most Americans are unaware of this shameful chapter in US history. The fact that our government was able to package unconscionable debt and land theft as restorative land justice for systemic racial discrimination against Black farmers for decades reveals just how far we have come in this experiment of American democracy. Many of our elder farmers refer to USDA as the last plantation due to the agency's history of pervasive racial animus, discrimination, and criminality against Black farmers. If President-elect Biden, his administration, and a new Congress are truly committed to dismantling institutional discrimination within USDA, they will fully support the Justice for Black Farmers Act and the comprehensive policy platform of Senator Elizabeth Warren. President-elect Biden should also disqualify Thomas Vilsack from a third-term appointment as Secretary of Agriculture. Due to his abysmal record on civil rights and his failure to provide bold leadership to address the injustices of the Pigford I settlement during his 8-year tenure. Under Vilsack's tenure, Dorothy and Eddie Wise, legacy farmers from Whitakers, North Carolina, were forcibly removed from their farmland by armed federal marshals due to the debacle of the Pigford lawsuit. Like Elder Bernard Bates, they did not receive compensation from the Pigford lawsuit. I wanted to lift up former US Representative Cynthia McKinney. This has been a 20-year marathon race for our Pigford legacy farmers, and we're so appreciative of her for her commitment to running alongside our farmers until we run our victory lap. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you. Thank you to Angela, to Carolyn Jones. Thank you, not only for the work that you're doing, not only for the stories that you've shared, but for the leadership and legacy that you all are building for your communities and for the Black farming community. Thank you so much for all the words that you've shared. In the chat, we've been able to share the websites for our speakers, emails for our congressman and our senator. We want you to also know that we are listening. Every single thing on this Zoom has been recorded. All the questions that have been submitted will be sent over to the offices of our senator and our congressman. So we will be sharing that with their staff and they will be following up. And as this recording is going to be available on the SEEP website, we will also be sending out emails. But y'all messed up already because you gave us your emails. And so we will be emailing you plenty to let you know about the work that we're doing at SEEP, but also about the works that our partners are doing. Our our other partners that we've had on the lines before, Saffon and SARE and the USDA Office of Community Outreach. We want to make sure that they're listening to you, because that is how change is made. Thank you to the congressman for being here, for Senator Booker for being here, for Leader Abrams for being here, for Angela, Tracy, and Carolyn for sharing all the stories that you had, to the SEEP team and the Black Belt Justice Center for their collaboration, Tracy for your leadership, Sarah Beth and Ali, our staff at SEEP, and our incredible interns this semester that help really make our outreach to the Black farming community, Kristen Wilder, Aditi, Victoria, Lenore, and Max. We work to be a bridge builder between the community and the community decision makers. Please continue to follow our updates on social media. And if for those who have not joined us on the actual Zoom but are watching on Facebook, please visit our website, theseep.org, so that you also can join our listserv. We always want to hear from you, but what we truly always want to do and make sure that SEEP is playing a role in is connecting you to the people that are doing this work. We may not all be Black farmers, but we are all responsible to make sure that we're uplifting the voices and the stories of our Black farming community. So to all that are listening to us, it has been an honor to be on this line with you today. I wish you good holiday blessings and a strong 2021, so that we are no longer on Zoom, but we are in the room where it's happening and where conversations are being made. Thank you all, and good blessings to everybody on the line. Have a great day.
Good evening.